Hi everyone, my name's Richard, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make the Sankara Stone from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Let's get to it! First, I began with getting some insulation foam. As I use foam for other projects, I was able to use the scraps from previous projects. But if you want to buy foam for this and other projects, there's a link in the description for where you can find it. Although you don't need to use insulation foam, you can simply use polystyrene foam. There are measurements all over the internet on the actual prop stone used in the film, so height and width dimensions can be decided depending on which of the three stones you create. Once all the pieces are cut out, I start by pinning all the layers of foam together with toothpicks. This will help keep all the layers aligned so they do not slip while the glue dries. You will want to apply a fair amount of PVA glue in between each layer of foam and then clamp the pieces together. You want to let it dry for at least 2 hours. However, I didn't let it dry for 2 hours and let's just say I regretted it. When you think the glue is dry, cut your block of foam to the desired height. Find the rough center of the stack of foam, and with a homemade compass I drew a circle. I also began to draw out the rough shape of what the stone will be. And on a hot wire cutter, I cut to the shape that I drew. To do this project, you don't really need a hot wire cutter. It just makes things a lot easier and faster for me. You can easily, very easily, do all this with a simple knife, which in a few moments, you'll see that you'll be using it anyway. Once the shape was fully cut out, I went in with a box cutter, taking away the edges of the stone. This is why you let it dry properly, as PVA dries when exposed to air and being trapped between two layers tightly, the glue will take longer to dry. But no problem, I re-glued it and re-clamped it, and then got back to work on it. I shaved away the edges of the foam till eventually there were no more extreme edges. The foam was sanded with a 150 grit sandpaper. You want to sand it to get rid of the remaining edges that were created during the shaving, but you do not need to worry about it too much, as you'll see why in a moment. While sanding it, the foam may tear in a few spots, but do not worry, for that will all be covered up later. What you'll be doing next is applying a type of wall filler and slapping it onto the foam. I used the flat side of a wooden fork to apply the wall filler onto the foam. I spread it out all over, and then eventually I went in with my fingers and rubbed it smooth. Be sure to have a little pot of water on side. Smoothing it down with water will save you time sanding it later. This stuff does take some time to dry, and you'll know it's still drying when it feels cold to the touch. But when it is dry, it's rock hard. When it was time to sand, I started with 150 grit sandpaper. This grit allows you to remove all the large imperfections from the wall filler. But a slight warning, it does get messy. After your first sand, you may want to apply more filler to any air bubble spots that may have formed during your first coat. Let it dry, sand, and see if you want to add more. Eventually, you'll be working your way up through the different grits of sandpaper, depending on the final texture you'll want for your stone. Next is the marking of the 3 iconic lines on the stone. Up until this point, my parents have been looking at me very funny whenever I show them my progress. Can't imagine why. With a saw blade, slowly and gently cut a small dent into your stone. And then, with a square file, increase the size of it, till eventually a round file is able to fit into the dent. And once you've filed your 3 lines, you want to use more filler, push them into the dents to smooth it out. Making these grooves rough is also a nice touch, as pre-bought stones show off this feature. This next step works better if you have a terracotta spray paint or acrylic paint, but as I had neither, it needed to be made with a mixture of red and brown paints stirred together and applied to the stone. Unfortunately, I got carried away with the painting and forgot to record the next part. However, it's simply darkening the stone, and you can do this by dry brushing darker browns onto it, or even applying a black or dark brown wash to it. Next is the iconic white lines that are painted into the grooves. You simply grab a little bit of white paint, you rub it off into your palm like I do, or if you don't like to be as messy as me, you can simply wipe it away on a towel, making it dry, and then you brush it into the groove. To me, this creates a really good effect, making it look worn and natural. And finally, all the paint is sealed with a matte varnish to protect it for years to come, especially when it's put in a museum. I hope you have enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you have, consider subscribing for future content. If the video does well and interests enough people, I'll make a part 2 of this video, showing how to make the stone in its glowing form. Hope you have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.